Hi, this is Paul Turley with SolidQ and the DNB MVP program, and I'm going to talk about different options for integrating DNB cleanse and match and business verification into business. Now, there are a lot of options, but categorically, 3 different scenarios. The first would be for the data steward, the desktop user. This is the business user, not the developer, where we want to validate and update data on demand in relatively small volumes and to do it manually. And for this, we can use the Business Verification Office app for Excel. It's simple, streamlined. You either paste or enter data and then click a button, it runs, verifies, gets the DUNS number, and we're done. The second, in a slightly more sophisticated scenario, would be for the data analyst who wants to have a little more control, maybe for group collaboration. And this can be automated and programmed, and then there are some sophisticated tools that can be used. Tools like Power Query can be used with the DNB Azure Marketplace data feeds. So this gives us a little more flexibility and control, but still focused on the business analyst rather than the developer. And then for the enterprise scale, where we want to integrate data from different places, we want it to be fully automated, and we have frequent updates, maybe a larger volume of data. For this, we can use the SQL Server Integration Services component or build a completely custom solution using the API. So here are the data feed services available from DNB in the Azure Marketplace. So once we've subscribed to a service in the Marketplace, we use the Business Verification Office app, which is just a quick download from the Office store, and either paste or enter data into the template. Click the button, let it run. It runs against our subscription, and then it cleanses, matches the data, and then we see the results here with the DUNS number, the cleansed data, and then all of our confidence levels, etc. So here's an example of using Power Query with the Azure Marketplace DNB services. So we open up Power Query, and then we use the Azure Marketplace as a data source. Our subscriptions show up here in the Navigator pane. Simply select the subscription that we already have in place, and then we can import from that cleanse and match data. And here we see an example of data in a pivot table, which an analyst can then use, or a salesperson could work these leads, and then they would be able to slice and analyze that data. Of course, this gives us the ability to do deeper analytics using more sophisticated visualization and analytic tools like Power View and Power Map and other reporting tools against Power Pivot and other components of the Power BI suite. So that really is for the self-service BI or the business analyst role to be able to do deeper analytics. And this brings us to integrating cleanse and match with the integration services data transformation component. So this uses the API. It works within SSIS, which means you can use a variety of data sources, data destinations, works with SQL Server 2008 R2, 2012, 2014, and then the authoring is all done in the Visual Studio shell that installs with SQL Server. So this is really for the enterprise developer to create an enterprise solution. And for a person who has skills in that area, it's actually a relatively simple thing to integrate. So let's take a look at the basic settings for the SSIS component. So here we can see an example of the component added to a data flow in an integration services package. You double click on that, and then these are the essential settings. There are 2 threshold settings that determine match segregation. And what that means is that we have the auto-correction threshold, which separates matched records from unmatched records. And here you can see we've used the default confidence level of 8. So 8 or above will go into the matched bucket. Anything below 8 is going to go into the unmatched bucket. Then we have the minimum confidence level, which is the line between unmatched records and what we call pre-validated failures. These are records that we don't even try to match to a DUNS number at all. So if you look at these three different phases, you have those that we're rejecting because the quality is low or the match level is low, those where we're guessing and matching it up to a DUNS number but want to verify, and then those where we are going to trust that the right decision was made. So let's go ahead and take a look at actually building a solution. So I've opened up SQL Server Data Tools for SQL Server 2012 or 2014 in this case, and I've already created an integration services project, but I'm going to use that project to add the DNB SSIS component to. So here you see that I have a SQL Server database. I have a table called leads, and we'll take a quick look at the leads records that I could have gathered through a campaign or an exhibit show, or those could come from a variety of different places. But there you can see my lead records with the company name, the address, city, state, zip code, and other information that I might typically have for customers, leads, prospects, vendors, companies. So the yellow highlight here in this Excel spreadsheet, this is just a pivot table that shows what's in that table. So the yellow cells are actually records that I know to not match. So I know that these are actually incorrect. The names are a little bit different than the actual company names. Maybe somebody keyed them wrong, maybe it's old information, and then I actually added two records down below that I know are completely bogus and aren't real businesses. So for example, in this case, the word industries is not actually part of the name. Here you can see that the state is missing for some of these records as well. So in my SSIS package, you can see that I'm truncating some tables, I'm cleaning up some data, I'm doing things that I would normally do in an ETL solution. One of the steps that I found necessary was that the DNB component expects countries to be in the form of a 2-character ISO country abbreviation. We were storing UK for England, and the ISO standard is GB, so I just had to create a transform that made that change, and of course that could be table driven or it could be resolved in a query, but these are the kinds of things that I normally need to clean up. So I double click on the component after adding it, and then I'll enter my credentials, my username and password that I obtained from Dun Bradstreet when subscribing to the API service. Then we'll go to the settings tab, and here's the autocorrect threshold and the minimum confidence level thresholds with their defaults. And then I need to map my incoming columns to these required fields. And so there you see the company name, the address, city, state, country, and zip code or postal code, and my telephone number. So those are the columns that the component matches on. Anything else in my data flow just gets passed through to the output. And then as I drag the output to each of my destinations, I can choose either a data error, that's just a standard SSIS data flow error, and then there are 3 optional outputs, which includes the pre-validation failure, the no match, and then the matched output. So in this case, now these don't have to be separate outputs, but we could use derived columns to go flag records with the status of the match and send them to a single table. In this case, I'm actually sending these to 3 separate tables, and then in another package, I'll use a derived column to put a match status column in place, and then combine them back into a single table so that they can be cleansed. So let's go ahead and run the package. So it does the pre-validation real quickly, and then you'll see it create all of the connections. So there it's truncated my destination tables, and now it's validating my credentials, and then it will hit the API, and then the matching engine will start doing its work after a few seconds. And then we'll actually see the record counts as the records flow into those 3 output buckets. And there we go. So we've got 2 records that failed pre-validation. We have 2 records that were not matched, that were just essentially considered a low-quality match, and then the rest of the records went into the matched bucket. So here we can see my cleansed records. So I just have a pivot table based on that table here in Excel, and I've actually taken the match grade column you can see there, and I've exploded that out into 11 separate columns. We can actually see the results of the match grade. And so if we look at a record with a confidence level of 10, you can see that the match grade is very high. And so for each of the elements of the match grade, you can see that the values of my incoming records were either the same or similar to the record that it got matched up in the DNB database. Here I've actually created a Power Pivot model against the records, and so we can analyze the match grade and analyze the characteristics of this data. So there you see confidence level of 9. There are 4 records that had a confidence level of 9, and we can look at each of those incoming records and see that in this case E. Elliott Company went in, and it matched that to the full name. Here this one had SVC, and the actual company did not have SVC or service in the name. So again, it wasn't an exact match, but it was very similar. And we can see evidence of that in the different match grade elements. That concludes the demonstration. A couple things in summary here, some really important elements. The match grade represents 11 letter grade elements of a business record that are factored into the confidence level. So there are 4 different levels of match grade for these 11 different elements. So you can break that down, you can understand what the matching engine was actually doing internally, and you can use this to look at it under a microscope rather than just accepting the match behavior from the API. Having access to the specific match grade elements can be useful in understanding what data changes for a business over time as it's updated, as well as what may have been suspect in the original records. The DUNS number has really become the de facto unique identifier for businesses all over the world, and can be useful in updating that record in the future from DNB, and also getting additional premium data such as sales and performance information, minority status, and related business information from DNB in the future. So, thank you for watching. For more information, go to solidq.com and to dnb.com. Thank you.